Hello, my name is Joshua Mugabi. I welcome you to Angiosperms. What are angiosperms? The flowering plants. What is the main feature that distinguishes them from gymnosperms? Flowering plants have flowers and seeds, phanerogamic. They differ from gymnosperm by having seeds within fruits. What are the two main groups into which the plants are divided? Angiosperm plants are divided into monocotyledonous, the monocots, and dicotyledonous, the dicots. What are the main morphological differences between the monocot plants and dicot plants? The main differential criteria between monocots and dicots are number of cotyledons, that is the seed leaf, in seeds, 1 in monocot and 2 in dicot. Then the pattern of leaves, parallel in monocot, reticulate in dicot. Multiplicity of petal number, multiples of 3 in monocots, multiples of 4 in all 5 in dicots. Position of the vesicular bundle in the stem, scattered in monocot, concentrically ringed in dicots. Grasses, banana tree, sugarcane, orchids are examples of monocots. Sunflower, ox, water lilies are examples of dicots. What are the androecium and the gynoecium? What are the other structures of flowers? The androecium is a set of male reproductive structures of flowers. It comprehends the stamens formed of filament and anther. One flower has one androecium that may have one or several stamens. Gynoecium is a set of female reproductive structures of flowers. It is generally composed of a single pistil that includes the stigma, the style, and the ovary. The androecium usually surrounds the central gynoecium. Beside the androecium and gynoecium, typical flowers are also made up of the pedicel, the sepals, and petals. What is pollination? What are the main forms of pollination? The process in which pollen grains, which are the male gametophyte of the phanerogamic plants, reach the female gametophyte is called pollination. The main form of pollination are anemophile, in which the pollen is carried by wind; hydrophile, pollination helped by water; entophile, pollen carried by insects; anitophile, pollination by birds; chilopterophile, pollen dissemination by birds. Characteristics of flowers of each plant species relate to the type of pollination used by the plant. Colored flowers are specialized in birds and insect attraction. Nocturnal flowers generally are white and perfumed. Many specialize in pollination by birds. Nectar is also a specialization to attract pollinator animals. Flowers that produce exaggerated amount of pollen often use wind as pollinator. Position of the anthers more external or internal next to the nectar is a way to facilitate pollen dissemination, respectively by wind or by animals. How are the male gametophyte and the male gametes formed in angiosperms? In the anthers of each stamen, there are pollen sacs. Within the pollen sac, there are microspore mother cells. The microsporocytes, these cells undergo meiosis, forming microspores. Each microspore, by mitosis, forms pollen grain containing one generative cell and one tube cell. The pollen grain is a male gametophyte. When pollination occurs, the pollen grain makes contact with the stigma, the apex of the pistil. The tube cell elongates. Its cytoplasm forms the pollen tube that grows towards the ovary. The generative cell divides, forming two sperm nuclei, or the male gametes, that migrate through the pollen tube. How many cellular nuclei does the pollen tube of angiosperm have? What is the ploidy of each of these nuclei? The pollen tube, that is mature male gametophyte of the angiosperm, has three cellular nuclei: two sperm nuclei, and one tube cell nucleus. All these nuclei are part of the male gametophyte of the plant, that each of them is haploid. How is the female gametophyte formed in angiosperms? In flower, ovary, they are the megasporangium, enclosed by teguments, having small opening, the micropyle. Within the megasporangium, there are megasporocytes or megaspore mother cells that undergo meiosis, forming 4 megaspores, of which 3 regress and only 1 is functional. The functional megaspore undergoes 3 mitosis, generating 8 cells, that as a whole form of the embryo sac. What is the embryo sac? Which are the cells that form the embryo sac? What are their proides? The embryo sac is the female gametophyte of angiosperm. The embryo sac is composed of 3 cells that remain next to the micropyle, 2 lateral synagogues, and the central oosphere, the egg. 1 binucleated cell, the polar nuclei, is placed in the center region. 3 antipodal cells stay in the opposite side of the micropyle. Since all these cells come by mitosis from the function megaspore, they are haploid. After pollination, how does vegetation occur in angiosperm? In these plants, is vegetation dependent on water? After pollination, 1 sperm nuclei from the nuclear pollen tube unites with the oosphere of the embryo sac, forming a diploid, which is a zygote. The other sperm nucleus fuses with the polar nuclei of the embryo sac, originating a triploid cell that by mitosis will turn into the second endosperm of the seed. The synagogues and the antipodal cells degenerate after fecundation process. Fecundation in this plant is independent from water. What is the difference between self-pollination and cross-pollination? Which of these 2 modes of pollination contributes more to the plant diversity? Self-pollination occurs when pollen grains from a flowering plant falls into the pistil of the same plant, and thus gametes from the same individual unite to form a zygote. Cross-pollination occurs when pollinators carry pollen grain from a plant and reach another individual plant of the same species. Thus, gametes of different individuals form the zygote. Since it promotes formation of zygote containing genes from different individuals, that is new gene combination, cross-pollination contributes more to biological diversity. What is dichogamy? Dichogamy is a phenomenon of maturation of female reproductive structures of the plant in different periods to maturation of the male reproductive structure. Dichogamy prevents self-pollination and makes cross-pollination almost obligatory, so assisting in an evolutionary strategy to promote genetic recombination. What are the typical structures of the seed? What is endosperm? A typical seed is composed of the embryo, endosperm, and shell. Within seeds of gymnosperm, there are one or two cotyledons. Those are the seed leaf, one in monocots, two in dicots. The endosperm is the tissue within the seed that has the function of nourishing the embryo. How different are the endosperm of gymnosperm and the endosperm of gymnosperm? Gymnosperm, the endosperm is haploid. It is called primary endosperm. In angiosperm, the endosperm is triploid, 3N, called secondary endosperm. What are cotyledons? Cotyledons or seed leaf are structures formed by the embryo of angiosperm to absorb nutrients from the endosperm and store and transfer these nutrients to the embryo. Cotyledons are auxiliary embryonic structures. Seeds of monocots have a single cotyledon, and seeds of dicots have two cotyledons. What are the main functions of fruits? The main function of fruits are the protection and spreading of seeds. How are fruits formed? Fecundation in angiosperm triggers the release of hormones that act upon the ovaries. The ovary wall then develops into a fruit that contains the seeds. Are fruits always fresh? Part of the fruits is the edible part of the onion a fruit? In so-called fruits, the actual fruit is not the fresh part. For example, the fresh part of the strawberry is not the fruit. The fruit is a small hard dots on the surface of the strawberry. Other examples, the fresh part of the cashew is not the fruit. The fruit is the nut. The edible part of the onion is the stem of the plant and not the fruit. Why are there plants having single-seeded fruits and plants having fruits with more than one seed? Plants that produce single-seeded fruits, for example mango and avocado, often have ovaries with only one egg inside. Fruits with more than one seed are originated from plants whose ovaries have more than one egg. What are infractescens, pseudofruits, and parthenocarpic fruits? Infractescens are aggregated fruits formed from inflorescence. Aggregated flowers, grape clusters are examples of infractescens. Pseudofruits are fruits not made in the ovaries. In general, their true fruits lack development and are formed within the flesh, like apples and pears. Parthenocarpic fruits, those made without fecundation by means of hormonal stimuli, like bananas. What is the evolutionary importance of the fruits for the angiosperms? The fruits contain seeds, and they can detach from the plant, falling on the ground, and can serve as food for animals. Therefore, with emergence of fruits, the seeds of angiosperm could be transported across long distances, contributing to the propagation of the species. What are the trends of the gametophyte in the evolution of the plants? The tendency of the gametophyte evolution in plant has been towards formation of gametes that are independent from water. In bryophytes and in pteridophytes, the fecundation is totally dependent on water. In phanerogamic plants, such dependence does not exist. Another tendency is the reduction in the size and the duration of the gametophytes. In bryophyte, the gametophyte is indeed the lasting stage. In pteridophyte, gymnosperms and angiosperms, it becomes temporary stage, and its relative size was successfully reduced. The third evolutionary trend relates to the interdependence between gametophyte and sporophytes. In bryophytes, the sporophyte is entirely dependent on the gametophyte to survive. In the remaining plants, the sporophyte is independent stage, and once autotrophic gametophyte in sporophyte and pteridophyte becomes dependent upon the sporophyte in phanerogamic plants. Thank you very much for participating in Angiosperms. Please do like, share, and subscribe.